There's a fire in my soul, in my soul. And every time it burns, that's when I know where to go, where to go, where I am to go.
Welcome to this week's Behind the Senior Lens. I'm your host, Lori Wood Habiger, and photographer of Center Stage Seniors in the Kansas City area. This week, I am talking to the wonderful April Manning of April Manning Photography in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. I've got all of April's info in the video details. Please give her a follow on her social media channels and show her some love. Hey, April.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on the Behind the Senior Lens podcast. And I'm really excited to talk with you today. So April and I met at a conference recently, and we knew of each other beforehand just from all the groups we belong to, but it was really fun to see you in person and hear that pretty accent of yours.
You're going to hear more of that.
Yes. And so tell me, how did you first get into photography and then senior photography?
Okay. Well, I was always the mom with the camera to start. My oldest son is 28 and my youngest is 21. So, any sport activities, school activities, vacations, anything, I've got the camera. For Christmas. It was always like, oh, I need a lens. I need a new camera. That was kind of my hobby. Then in 2012, my husband took a job overseas and we relocated actually for 3 years. So I gave up my current job, which was working for a Department of Defense contract, and we moved overseas. And in my neighborhood was a lady who was very, very good at photography. She ran a business there. And since we lived in the Middle East, it actually was times when you couldn't do pictures outside. It was like 115 degrees. It felt like 150 degrees. And she decided to do a 6-week photography course when it was too hot to really get outside. And she put on Facebook, hey, anybody interested in taking a class? I was like, yeah, I am. Because, I was always with the camera, but always shooting in auto. Took her class. She was excellent. She gave you homework and pretty much taught me how to do, manual photography.
Yeah.
So, I had fun with it, still just taking pictures of the kids, still just doing like our travels. When we came back to the US, my youngest was still in school, and my husband was traveling a lot. So it just kind of wasn't going to work out for me to go back to my job just with school activities. We actually live on a farm, so like there's not even a bus stop. I mean, it's like half a mile up the road. And so logistically, I'm like, well, what can I do? And I need to do something. And I'm like, hey, I really, I kind of liked what she taught me. And so I thought maybe I could implement that into like portrait photography. And that's kind of how it went. So that would have been, like 2015, 16. And I did families, did couples, did seniors. Then it was just like, oh, yeah, seniors. That's what I like to do. And there was no looking back.
And so tell me, what was it that you liked in particular about seniors that made you want to specialize?
I'm a people person. So like I always feel like when I have clients, I feel like by the time we leave, mom, dad, grandma, whoever comes, and the senior, we're like really good friends. So I kind of like that one-on-one because I'm working with the senior. I'm also in the background working with the parent, talking to them. I just like that one-on-one interaction. Plus, it's nice to make the girls look really, really pretty. And when I first started out, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't doing a whole lot. I mean, I'd spent a year building my portfolio before I even was advertising for pictures. So it was a lot of word of mouth, that kind of thing. So I think when I actually started my business, by then I was already when I did my website, Facebook page, Instagram, and all that, I was already doing seniors.
April, tell me a little bit about your style. So I did look at your website, and of course, I've followed you on Instagram for a few years now. You're natural light exclusively?
Yes, I will do off-camera flash in a pinch. Did one recently. One of the girls had a studio set with me, and we did that early in the day. And I was going to do her and her sister's pictures outside on the farm immediately after. Of course, all week long, it's overcast, perfect conditions for doing a, 2 p.m. photo shoot.
Yeah.
That day, not a cloud in sight.
Naturally.
So yeah, that's the way it goes. So I will do it in a pinch, but I prefer to use natural light.
Yep. April, it looks like you have pretty straight editing style and that you don't do a lot of color washes and different kind of weird
No,
presets and stuff. So
no.
you like kind of the natural color.
Yes, I do. I think my stuff's kind of vibrant. I do like my greens muted, I'll be honest with you. Like
Okay.
vibrant greens make me cringe. It's just a personal preference. But I like everything else vibrant. So that's kind of how I roll. And that's kind of the one things I look at when, especially when you do like late night edits and you get up the next morning and you're like, oh, how did I do last night? You're like, oh no, let's redo that.
What is that
Yeah.
about? Is it our eyes aren't working right? Every time I edit at night, in
Yes.
the morning, I'm always horrified and fixing things.
Yeah. Or maybe it's because we're editing and watching Netflix. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe it's the light coming out of the monitor at night seems
Yeah.
to our eyes. I don't know, but night
Yeah.
editing, I've almost entirely stopped. What I'll do now is I'll
Uh-huh.
pull and maybe do an Evoto
Mhm.
retouching, but I don't
Yes.
allow myself to do any of the Photoshop work until morning.
Well, you know what? Probably this past year is the first year that I follow that same rule, Lori.
Yeah.
I do things at night when I'm watching TV, but I've quit the editing. In a pinch, maybe if like I'm doing something for myself that it's not, something the clients paid me for, I may fiddle around with it at night. But anything that I'm going to actually deliver a paying client, yeah, I've kind of followed that same rule because I end up just redoing it the next day.
About how many seniors do you tend to photograph every year?
Oh my gosh. Every year's different.
Yeah.
And this is why I feel like this is my business.
Yeah.
And if I've got like things going on, I feel like I can see less. And if I've got like a summer that's more free, so it does fluctuate. But if I had to like come up with the average, I would say about 60 a year.
Okay, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, I say busy. And that's teens and seniors now because I have
Oh,
a team.
right.
I do a lot of teens, not as many
Hmm.
as my seniors, but I do have a teen business as well. So I just counting my teens, it's probably about 50, 56, 60.
I think that's actually quite a lot.
It's a lot.
But that's the beauty of owning our own business is we
Mhm.
can decide. And if we want to
Yes.
do 100 one year and 30 the next, like that's totally within our purview as long as it's what we want.
Absolutely. And that's what I've actually been doing now. This is like I take off every January and February. And when I say off, that just means I'm not out with my camera. I'm still
Right.
doing all the other things. And that's what I was working on yesterday was like penciling in, any trips, birthdays, things I have planned to kind of get a feel for how many clients I'm going to take on this year. And I am pretty firm too. I'll go ahead and tell you when I get my schedule done, because I always, have to put rain dates in because it's
Yeah.
Kentucky. And I mean, we've had like months of July in the summer where it's rained every week and I've had to redo every one. And I always like to make sure that I'm able to get my clients in within a couple of weeks. So I try not to overfill my calendar so that, I'm stressed trying to get people in.
April, you have property where you do a lot of your shooting, is that right?
Yes, we actually have a 12-acre farm. And it's we definitely live off the beaten path, I'll tell you. But I'm like 15 minutes from the interstate from several different towns. So even though I'm in a very rural area, it's very easy for my clients to get to me
Oh,
from several different counties. Now, mind you, when they get off the interstate, I mean, it's a one lane road you're having to get over. And I always tell everybody, to watch out for cars. But yeah, we have a 12-acre farm. So a lot of times when my clients are like, I want a nature, when we have the consultation, they're like 100% nature, or sometimes they're like, some nature, some downtown. And I have combinations where we can do that and work here at the farm as well. And it makes it great for me because I know where all the light is. I know what time things
Yes,
look best in what areas. And it's nice too in the summer for them to be able to change here in the AC office.
so true. So do you have ponds on your property and do you ever
Uh,
use those?
we do. We have probably I'm bad at measurements, but I would say 1.5 acre pond slash lake with a boat dock. So that's a must.
Nice.
Yeah. And we have, like, I always have a field for the past, gosh, this year will probably be year 4 or 5. I plant a very huge zinnia patch
Oh my
that
gosh.
the girls absolutely
I
love.
would love that too.
It's nice and it's pretty for me because when I sit on my screen porch, it's a nice view for me when I'm not working.
Sure.
I keep wanting to expand on that, but sometimes just time gets away. I had wanted to add the mini sunflowers last year. My husband traveled a whole lot last year and just I couldn't do it by myself. So it is what it is. That's on the agenda for this year is to try to get that taken care of and added on to the back of the farm.
I love we say zinnias, but
Mhm.
here, at least on my farm, but well, I don't live on the farm anymore, but we have a family
Mhm.
farm. But I've always
Yes.
wanted to plant zinnias,
Oh, they're
a
so
whole field
easy.
of them, but
Mhm.
my family farm is an hour and a half away from here, and nobody
Mhm.
wants to go down there.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of
But
sad.
what? The first year that I did it, Lori, it was like test, and I probably did a 5 foot by 8 foot patch, and it's amazing how many pictures I could get just in that little area. So
Wow, that's
you
great.
can really do that in your yard.
Yeah, it's just we live in a suburban, like houses right up next to each other. It's hard to find an angle where
Yeah,
you don't see other houses. And I
yeah.
know I could do squatting and stuff, but there's just so much you can
Be
do.
limited. You be
Yeah.
limited in your poses. I see.
Yes. So let's look at some of your pictures.
Oh, yay.
Yay! This is my favorite part. April, first one we're going to talk about is this gorgeous kid here, beautiful sunset in a body of water. Is this one of
Yes.
your ponds?
I wish. My
Oh,
pond's a little bit smaller than that.
yeah, it's
That
pretty good.
actually is at a lake that's probably about a 35-minute drive from my house.
Okay.
And that's from this past fall. After doing things on the edge of the water towards the end, we, had to get our feet wet. So that's where this one came.
You know,
That's actually one of my favorites from the year. I just love that image.
I do too. This is becoming a trend. Have you noticed that? The seniors
Yes.
want to get in the water. They see somebody
Mhm.
does a water picture somewhere, the kids see it,
Yes.
go, and then they want it too, and suddenly it becomes a trend. And I got asked about it a lot this year. It's unfortunate because it seems like all of the bodies of water near me,
Mhm.
it's difficult to get into them.
Yeah, it is. It's the same way. I get a lot of requests for creek photos,
Mhm.
and there is a creek in a park, but I'm talking, and I did drive to it for a shoot this summer for one of my teens, but it was kind of her request. I kind of doing it for me as well, but I mean, it was literally a 2 hour drive, and I just can't do that for
Oh,
every client. And I mean,
no.
I'm talking a long drive.
There's often so much brush or something that makes it so you
Mhm.
cannot get into that body of water. The kids
Yes.
don't understand this. They think you can snap your fingers and you'll come up with this gorgeous beach that they can get into in
Yeah. Yeah.
Kentucky or in
Um,
Kansas, and it's just not easy.
Well, and what I tell them here too, a lot of times is, and it's the truth. I said, even if you get permission on someone's farm, if they have a creek, I'll just let you know if they've got cattle or horses, that's what's in the pond,
Yes, the
runoff. So if you want to get in there, that's up to you. And
our
then once they realize, yeah, that's truth. I'm like, yeah, they're not the cleanest of things when they're on farms for most farms.
cows like to get into the water and just poop.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the
that's
way
what it
it is.
is. Yeah.
We do have one area. Of course, every single photographer in the area uses this one spot, but even
Mhm.
that, it's slippery because they've got kind of a launch
Yes.
area for boats, but there's so much algae or
Mhm.
whatever that grows there that it is really treacherous even to get in there.
Yeah, and I'm kind of cautious with my gear too when it's that
Yeah.
slick.
Yeah. So, okay, she's gorgeous. what lens are you using? And I saw your Canon. I did look at your
Yeah.
info.
Yeah, I'm a Canon R5 girl, and that was with my 35 millimeter. And
Okay.
I use Sigma lenses, just so you know. So that was with my Sigma
Okay.
35.
That reminds me, I did look at the EXIF info on your pictures before, and
Mhm.
you use that 35 a lot.
I do. It rarely comes off.
Yeah. Really want to talk about this for several reasons.
Yes.
Beautiful. Love the redhead and that
Mhm.
sea green. You've
Mhm.
got your zinnia up there.
Yes, that was actually
Yeah.
a teen that came over to the farm, and that was in the patch.
Love it. Now, some things I want to talk about personally. And what I do love, I find a 35 hard to work with because I feel like there's a lot of distortion in their
Mhm.
lamps and stuff, but I don't see that a lot in your work. So
Yeah.
you figured out the angles to use to not
Yeah. And I
use.
found too, if I get too close with my 35, I think that's when that distortion, because when I first got it, I'd be like, you get home and you're unloading everything and you're like looking and go, oh my gosh, that looks awful.
Yeah.
And I finally realized, how close I can get with that
It's
lens.
about the angles too, a lot of
Yes,
times.
absolutely.
So I have seen this as a trend just recently on
Mhm.
Instagram, and that is getting their skirt
Yes.
up over their head.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
I
sure
love it.
people is giggling about this
Uh-huh.
thing. And
Uh-huh.
it looks beautiful. Another thing I was going to talk about is this laying down pictures, I think, is hard to find the right angle for them no matter what lens you're using.
Yes.
Have you found that?
I have. I think the mistake I've made a lot is thinking that I had to get exactly on top
Yeah.
of the client.
Yeah.
And I think having them turn in and doing it more from a side angle works
Mhm.
better.
I have taken so many laying down pictures I just delete because the angle
Mhm.
is just so wrong. And I can
Yeah.
kind of see it when I'm taking it, but I somehow think I can do better somehow.
Yeah.
And I try all these angles. I don't know. I feel like I'm not the best at the laying down, but that's on my list of things to get better at. So
Okay.
yeah, I love that you got our freckles there. So you do have a
Yes.
pretty natural editing style, as
Yes.
we mentioned, although you get rid of the vibrant green. So
Yes.
don't don't look at my work, okay?
Listen,
I'm very
just for
focused.
me, I appreciate everyone else's vibrant greens.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for me, and I think it's
Oh, and
because we in Kentucky, everything's so green all the time.
it's
So I think
very
that's why.
green.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
green.
But I love that you kept our freckles. And that's something
Yes.
I think some of us in senior portrait photography are just
Mhm.
very conscious of trying not to get rid of those natural features because
Yes.
everything today well, forever since I've started in digital, but there are so many tools you can use that go
Hmm.
so far, too
Hmm.
far. And
Yes.
it's so nice to see a person with a light hand that lets a person's freckles still show and things like that.
Yes. And I really appreciate it now. I think that I've found that so many of my clients want to embrace their freckles because I've had years earlier where they don't appreciate them. They want them gone. And I do always ask, like, hey, do you love your freckles? Because I'm a freckle fan and I will really make them pop if you want me to. And I think the trend for the past 3 years is yes, please. So that makes me happy.
Next, we have wonderful. Okay, so I really like, and this is one thing I don't shoot with the wide angle lenses very much, but I love when people do them right. And so
Mhm.
I think one thing that a wide angle does is almost looks photojournalistic at times.
Mhm.
So it almost looks like you're some sort of lifestyle reporter and you're out covering maybe cowboys out on a ranch or something, and this is one of the
Yes.
guys you run across. You can't get that sort of photojournalistic look with a 135, which is what I use. And so this
Yes.
is a really dynamic image with him leaning backwards and, his legs coming towards us, and there's a
Mhm.
curve to his body, and the whole thing
Yes.
looks just very alive to me.
Yeah, thank you. That's one of my favorite male images. I think that's from about maybe 2 years ago. He's already in college, but
Mhm.
this actually is a place it's actually a barbecue place.
Really,
And
that's their wood pile.
yeah, and that was the wood pile they had. So directly across from this location is where the sun sets. So it's kind of one of those places when I would take clients there, we literally had this little window of 10 to 15 minutes max because it would be so bright that they're squinting and then it was like bam and I would be like and get all their pictures done. But sadly that place isn't existing or they've
Oh,
redid that. They took away my wood pile.
I
Makes me
see.
sad.
Why do people not consult us?
Oh, I mean, they take down my garages, they take down my wood piles. It's not fair. They need to ask permission.
Oh, not okay. Okay, this is fantastic in
Yes.
every way. We've got the gorgeous kid wearing
Yes.
something really fun, the roller skates,
Yes.
this fantastic little house or building. We've got the
Yes.
sun flare going on.
Yes.
We have sunglasses. She
Yes.
looks like she's having the best time.
Well,
So,
she actually is a model. I mean, she
oh,
actually
okay.
signed with an agency.
Okay.
This was an agency work though. She lives, I don't know, probably about an hour and a half away from me, and we do try to hook up once or twice a year, just to do some content shoots. And this actually was at a dress shop in Lexington. And this was just a little building that was on the dress shop's property. So that's kind of how this one came to be. I think for this session, she tried on maybe 4 or 5 dresses, but this was the one that was my favorite.
It's nice because it pulls in the orange of the brick.
Yes. Yeah, it was a sweet spot. And that was with no off-camera flash, just with my camera and lens. And this was probably taken, gosh, probably about 1 or 2 p.m. in that. And it was pretty bright, but it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
I have a friend, a photography friend here in Kansas City with me, and she uses a lot of OCF and she does mainly business portraits and pictures of the interior buildings and things. But she's always messaging me and saying, Lori, this has to be OCF. You're doing OCF, right? And I'm like, no.
Uh-huh.
I'm not doing OCF. She messages me like every 6 months. Is this OCF? No. You can create these images in bright light. I think it's a lot of post-processing, brightening the right things and
Yes.
dimming dimming the sky and things like
Mhm.
that. But I think a lot of people don't understand that you can create it looks like this without ever using any flash gear at all. It's not the easiest sometimes. Like my
No.
straight out of camera sometimes is not very attractive, but I know what the potential is.
Yeah.
When I'm shooting, I know
You can make it work.
and I know what I can make it. So
Yeah, I always try to underexpose quite a bit when I'm doing something like this. So I've got
yeah,
more room to play when I do my
I
edits.
do too. I have this like abnormal fear of blown highlights. Like
Take us back to those first years. That's where our fear started, Lori. I know.
okay, I think this is cool too because it looks like it was shot in England to me. That looks like a
Huh.
cute little English cottage.
It does have a cottage vibe.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
If
I think,
that's still,
yeah, I think it was, and I think it's probably just like a little old storage building that they had never, torn down. But yeah, it was the colors with the leaves on there, the little orange touches there, I think worked good with the color of the dress.
yes, and even the skate color is perfect.
Yes.
April, if that's still there, I would be going back and shooting her there.
I'm sure they wouldn't mind.
That's so cute. This picture to me is April Manning.
Oh, thank you.
Now, I recognize your work anyway. When I come across it in my Instagram feed, I'm like, okay, April's posted.
Oh, that's the biggest compliment any photographer
It
can get.
really
So thank
is.
you.
Yes. And this one, above all that you sent me, is like the height of what April does to me.
Oh, yes.
So we've got like just a fresh-faced kid here
Mhm.
having such a genuine smile because you're working well with her. She's
Mhm.
very comfortable with you.
Yes.
You've kind of got that environment there, and you do that with your 35. So you like
Mhm.
to include the setting of the portrait.
Yes.
You kind of got these leading lines with these little vases and flowers, which is not something I would ever think of. I would be like, oh, I've got to get those out of the picture. But you use them and her little cup to you've got these
Yeah.
leading lines going straight into her, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I like putting some things in the forefront sometimes. And this actually was my first time shooting this girl. This was from my last year's senior model team first event. We
Yes.
went to a coffee shop, and that was like that was probably about 10 minutes into my like time with her. And it's one of my favorites of her for the year.
Wow, she's that comfortable 10 minutes in. Good for you. Another thing that I love is we as photographers, we love fuzzy lights in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And your coffee shop gave you those nice little fuzzy
Yes.
lights in the background.
Yes.
Again, it's a nice little framing element up there. Between the flowers and her drink and those lights up there, you create this, your eyes are just going right to this girl. Okay, another very April picture to me. Now this is our stock and trade. All
Yes.
shoot in the flower fields at golden hour. And I
Yes.
mean, why wouldn't we? It's such a beautiful look. And it's pretty timeless. These will
Mhm.
look good in 20 years.
Absolutely.
Yes. So is this your property here?
It is not, but a farm exactly 12 minutes from my house has put in a lot of flowers. They're actually a flower farm.
Oh,
And so literally 12 minutes from my house, we'll
nice.
go there. And like, so a lot of times the girls will start here on the farm, and we'll do a lot of the grass, the pond picks, that kind of stuff. And then we'll head to this location here. They have poppies during poppy season,
Oh,
wildflower garden. So yeah, I used them a lot last year. So easy to get to. I don't have to water these flowers.
do they have a fee to shoot there?
Yes, they do.
Mhm.
But it's very small.
Oh, great.
Yeah, yeah,
You
it's
know,
very small.
flower farms are becoming more popular. The bad thing for me is on my Kansas City area, I'm on the extreme west side, and it
Hmm.
seems like all of the flower farms are over on the extreme east side, which takes a good 45 minutes to drive.
Oh,
So I don't do that.
yeah. Like so, I use this one a lot, but 12. I mean, it's 12 minutes.
I
It's
so
hard
wish
not to sell that. It's really hard not to sell that. I mean,
I would be there all the time.
yeah, yeah. I spent a lot of time there last year.
All of my wildflower pictures are wildflowers in a park. And we have this massive park about 2 miles from me, but
Hmm.
the park gets irritated and I can't blame them because, we're saturated here like everywhere else.
Yeah.
And it's not just seniors, it's families, children. And when those wildflowers are blooming, there's probably 30, 40 photographers at the same time
I know.
in the park at golden
Yes.
hour.
Yeah.
And, they're trying to grow the flowers for the bees and things, and they don't
Hmm.
want photographers in there. So at some point every year, they rope off the wildflowers and will not allow you in there.
Yeah.
Then,
That's
of
that's
course, the photographers that feel like the rules don't apply to them, so they go through the barricades and photograph there anyway.
oh
And
no.
everybody else is worried that that's going to get everything taken away from us. And that's
Um,
just a little thing I have. I'm on my high horse right now about
uh,
photographers who
I'm
don't.
a rule follower. I'm
Me
such a rule
too.
follower. I am.
When people don't follow the rules, that's when
Mm.
things get taken away from us.
There's always repercussions. You
There
ruin it for
are.
everybody else.
Yes, we're all grown-ups. Can we just follow the rules? April, this is a fantastic picture.
Oh,
I
thank you.
see you're somebody that does distortion and you do it right. Like I
Yeah.
love it. It creates this movement in the picture. There's just kind of like this little curve that goes on. Tell me about this shoot.
This is one of this upcoming graduating class seniors, and she is a rodeo girl. That's kind of her thing, her style. She's also in FFA. This actually, it's kind of funny, not funny, but funny. I mean, she likes this picture. This wasn't the one of the photos that she picked when she came over and we did her IPS.
Okay.
And it was kind of like my favorite picture
Yes.
of the shoot. And don't you find that's always the case though?
Yes,
Sometimes
yes,
that
of course.
they like what they like.
Yeah.
I'm looking at things, I guess, more as an artist.
Mhm.
But I always shoot my clients from this perspective.
You do.
It's just one of my things that
Yes.
I always do. I think it just worked for her so well. Just the hat, the styling, it just worked
You gotta love a girl
for her.
that'll wear a hat. You know, hats are
Yes.
not in anymore in my area.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nobody wants to wear a hat. Everybody thinks they look silly in them. Of course, you've got a rodeo girl who wears hats
Yes.
as part of
Yeah.
her activity, so that's good. But hats are
Yeah.
such a nice framing element, and it really accents the eyes. And my girls are like, "Well, I don't wear hats in real life," and I'm like, "Yes, I know. That's not the point."
I always throw, like, when the girls send me their outfits, I'm kind of, oh, one of my hats for my style closet would work with that. I will throw the hat in the car and, you show it to them. I'm not really a hat girl. Then towards the end, I'm like, you know what? Can you put this hat on just for me? Just for me. And I show it during IPS and they always, oh, I like that. I'm like, yes, hats are awesome.
So many of the girls today, and I think is
Mhm.
because of social media, they're very image conscious.
Yes.
And so they're very brand conscious. Like where girls before weren't that particular about how they appeared. And now
Mhm.
they just think, well, I don't wear hats. I don't want to wear a hat, even for one picture.
I know.
And,
Like, do it
um,
for me. Do it
but
for
yeah,
me.
like if you force them into it, many times they do like it.
Hmm.
But back to her not choosing this initially, it sounds like she changed her mind later.
Well, I edited this one for me because
Got
I
it.
loved it, and I
Yeah.
normally do that.
Yeah.
I mean, she had a lot of pictures that she selected with the hat, but this just wasn't one
Sure.
that that made the cut for them.
Yeah,
But
but I
yeah.
get sad because
Hmm.
I'm not IPS, I'm an all-inclusive. So the way
Hmm.
I know really which ones that go over the best with the girls is which ones they put on their Instagrams.
Yes.
And many times I'm shocked because the ones that make it on their Instagrams are ones that were on the edge of me not even including it in their video.
Like I said, they like what they like.
Yes. And then
We
the
go
ones
for
that I
something
think
different.
are like this amazing rock star quality image and they never share it.
It's like I get tears in my eyes.
We
Like,
do
oh,
have
they're
this
not
time.
picking that one. They don't love it.
I know.
Yeah, but I get emotionally attached to my
Oh, I do
images too,
too.
and I was emotionally attached to that one, so
Yes. And
it's
you should,
still I still edit it for me.
you should be emotionally attached. It's very beautiful. Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, I have seen these on your social media.
Yes,
Love them. You really were right there with this herd of cows, correct?
yes, not even in Texas. That was in Kentucky. Her dad. I'm not sure the actual correction on this if he manages it or what he does at the stockyard, but this was at one of the stockyards in Lexington, and they have these long head cattle there, and that was one of her requests when we did her consultation was, can we end at the stockyard with the long head cattle? And I'm like, well, of course. And the incredible thing about that is that sky, that's real. That was what the sky looked like that night.
Love it.
Yeah, so I mean, I knew when I got there, I'm like, oh, this is going to be pretty epic. And they were like such babies.
Really?
Their like horns are enormous, and I mean, they were behind her at this point, but we had a lot of photos where they were around us.
Yes, I've seen
And
others.
but it's funny that they kind of are aware that they have so much space, and so they go really gently past you. You know, I
Interesting.
was still skipping around a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I was still skipping around just to make sure I didn't get hit, but they were really gentle. So
That's
yeah,
so
it was
nice.
really fun.
Do you do a lot since you're in Kentucky? Do you do a lot with horses?
Yeah, I don't do a lot with horses. I had a girl probably about 4 years ago. She was actually an equestrian rider. We did some shoots for her. Now, I will tell you, I get a lot of requests because I think people automatically, if they see some of my past photos, they're like, "Oh, I want a picture on a horse farm, or I want a picture with horses." I'm like, "Oh, well, what's your horse's name?" Like, "Oh, I don't have horses." I'm going, "Well, here's the deal.
Yeah.
It's Kentucky. These horse farms aren't going to let us just come in there to take photos. These horses are worth
Million dollar
so
horses.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, if you and I said, and to be honest with you, if you don't have a horse, you're not familiar with horse, you don't want to do horse photos because horses they can be a little fickle. I said you're going to have to dedicate a lot of time to get maybe one or two good shots.
That's
So
not
anything
very
I did,
genuine. It's
what'd you
not very
say?
genuine. It's not very genuine if they are not
They
on
just, they
pictures.
just, they just sometimes they just
They
like
fall in love with pictures.
they've been on Pinterest or
Yeah.
Instagram and saw someone else's pictures. So
Hmm.
I don't do a lot of horse photos, but I have did some. But it's always been when someone had a horse.
Yes.
And if anybody else asks, I'm like, no, it's
Yeah.
not going to happen. And I do shoot on several horse farms, but it's always been when I've had people that, had a relationship with someone on the farm or their
Mhm.
dad or mom works there. And then I'm able to get on those, but those are really hard to get into.
Yes, I'm sure. But given that you're in Kentucky and see when the rest of us hear Kentucky, we just automatically think horses.
Yeah,
So
now
I
my next door neighbors she has like probably about 4 or 5 horses. And so a lot of times on my farm, if I'm doing a shoot, if they're curious, they will come over and sometimes they're like heads are over the fence line and we'll get some photos and some fun candid moments like
yeah,
that the girls get really excited about.
I'm sure. Okay, April, so here's our last picture we're going to talk about, and this is
Yes.
very different.
It is different.
You don't
That's like
do this studio type thing very often.
I wish I did it more than I
Yeah.
do. I haven't gotten the girls to quite embrace it. My office is basically at my home. It's in my basement, which has a lot of natural light coming out on the sides. And so I've had this set up and it's just like getting them to like want to incorporate that just hasn't happened. So normally if you see something like that me post, it's been for content or like I've had a vision and had someone come over. But this year, I'm making it happen with my senior model team. They're going to get a complimentary studio session, 30-minute studio session, so that I need to practice, and it's just a
Yeah.
great way to do it.
That's what the way
Uh,
you do it.
yeah.
I'm trying to do more studio too, as well, just to give the girls something more varied. But I also like being in the air conditioning a little bit in the summer when the summer's so
Yeah.
hot. It's just a totally different way to be creative, and I like it. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to get studio more in front of the minds of my kids. And
Yeah.
so the way you do it, they won't do it unless they see it. So
I
you're doing
know.
the right thing.
Yeah, and most of my girls, not all, but most of my girls end up ordering a photo album. So I think having some studio photos in that mix just kind of elevates the
Exactly.
album. And this girl actually came over for a Christmas shoot for Christmas content this year, and we had the coat pulled out. And so at the end, I said, "Well, let's do some things with the coat," and that's kind of how this photo came to fruition. I think when I do studio images for me, I like the drama of it. Now I've did some fun ones with jeans and white tees and all that stuff, but when I'm doing it and I'm really excited about it, I like the drama of it, and I think that's what this one encapsulated. We had a lot of smiles and things for the Christmas content, but we did the fur. I'm like, okay, no more smiles. Let's add some drama to this, and that's how that one came to be.
I'm on the same wavelength as you on that. I love doing drama in the studio.
Yes.
There's some people out there that do such fun studio stuff.
Mhm.
I'm just all about drama. I
I
just
know.
want it to
I'm the same.
be
Yeah,
emotional.
I love your floral
Thank
backgrounds that you do.
you.
They're very dramatic. I love
Thank
them.
you. I just want it to be dramatic. And there's just something about a studio lighting maybe that accents
Hmm.
that drama. I do
Hmm.
notice though, I did look over your website
Hmm.
right before, and you do have a lot of dramatic images on your website.
That's
Very,
that's what I'm drawn to. I mean,
yeah.
it is. Parents are always going to be drawn to the smiles, the crisscross
Mhm.
applesauce. I always add those in for mom, but I think when I like post for me, what I'm drawn to, it's always the more dramatic.
It
Uh,
is me too.
yeah, it's just
And
kind
well, sometimes the girls feel shy about doing
of. Hmm.
dramatic, but I tell
Yes.
them, like, think about your face throughout the day. Are you
Mhm.
sitting smiling in while you're watching something on Netflix? Are you smiling when you're standing in line at the grocery store?
Yeah.
You're not. Our faces are in a neutral position like 90% of the day.
Right.
how people are accustomed to seeing us. We're just socialized
Mhm.
to feel like we have to smile in pictures, but
Yeah.
that shouldn't have to be the way it is. A
Yeah.
serious portrait is just as much you, in fact, possibly more so than
Mhm.
a smiling one. And
Yes.
it's just getting the girls to feel comfortable doing that and not feeling weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Some girls are really, they're like, they embrace it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. And I have some too. They're a little shy. And here's what I do for most of my paid sessions. The first thing I ask them is, do you smile with teeth? Yes or no? Do you smile without teeth? Yes or no? Do you do serious face? And I just get those prompts, and that's what I do for their sessions because it's one of those things you've learned. Because I've had girls were like, when you do IPS, they're like, "Well, I like that, but I wish my teeth weren't shine." I never smile with my teeth, and then it was like, "Oh, I've got to start asking that." So I always kind of get that. And always tell them, I was like, "Listen, and if I've got a pose I really, really like, you're probably gonna smile with teeth, same pose." Without and a serious face. So if I've given you those three prompts, I'm excited about that post.
Well, April, it has been wonderful talking with you today.
Oh, nice seeing you again.
I know. And let's do this again soon.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.